up on Double Tap TV.
Does Android accessibility stack up to iOS? We'll let Sean Priest be the guinea pig so you don't have to. Plus, how to get audio description going on Netflix. It's all coming up on Double Tap TV.
The latest tech,
In second place, with a total of 5 points.
interviews,
Being the third largest market cap company is not shabby at all.
accessibility.
This is my cane. I'll show you how I use it.
This is Double Tap TV.
Hi everyone, welcome to Double Tap TV. I am Marc Aflalo, joined by Stephen Scott, and this week we're so happy to have Sean Priest on the show. Gentlemen, what a fun time to be talking about tech. How you doing, Stephen?
Oh, do you know what? I'm great. I'm on the TV. How did that happen? What's gone wrong? It is great to be here, Mark. It is wonderful. And you're absolutely right. What a time to talk about technology, because there's so much technology around, and what's brilliant is the majority of it, not all of it, but the majority is accessible to blind people, and that's what we want to talk about.
Sean, happy to have you on the show this week. You guys have been doing Double Tap on AMI Audio for such a long time. One of the things we were talking about off air was we're about a month and a half away from a new iPhone. The Google Pixel 4 is going to be coming out. The question we ask ourselves is there going to be an affordable option for those people who want to get into the iPhone ecosystem or who are in it but have yet to upgrade because of these $1,000 price points? Stephen?
Well, I think there should be. Whether there will or not, who knows? I mean, who knows what Apple will do. But I think since the launch of the Google Pixel 3a phone, which comes in at around $400, I think that is going to change the market. And I think that is where we're going to start to see possibly a cheaper iPhone. Now, there already is a cheaper iPhone. It's called the iPhone SE, which I think they've stopped selling now. And I was kind of hoping there'd be an iPhone SE 2 by now. That's what I'd like to see coming up. But whether we see one or not, I don't know. But I think it would be right for Apple to do that, considering the cost of their devices now.
Well, just because you want it doesn't mean Apple are going to do it. Absolutely not. Apple do not do budget. I don't think we're going to see a answer to the Pixel 3a. I wish we were, but I don't think so.
Utter nonsense.
I think, of course,
I'll tell you why it's nonsense.
No,
I'll tell you why. Because they brought out a cheap iPad at $319. They then brought out, and of course the iPad Pro, which is very expensive, thousands of dollars for those. So, the idea they wouldn't bring out a cheaper iPhone is kind of goes against the grain. I mean, I know people say that as iPhones develop, as a new one comes out, another one maybe gets $100 knocked off, and maybe that is how it'll work. But I don't know. I think what is probably likely, I hope, maybe this is just me praying that it happens because I want one. I want an iPhone SE 2 and I want it in the shape of an iPhone 6. That's what I want. Apple, get on with it.
But you mentioned something interesting, which is they do tend to, as they release a new device, their older devices stick around for several years. Yeah. And the more technology that's in these devices, the longer those last and end up becoming cheap budget phones. I know if you look at Canada, there's so many subsidies, so you can get into an older generation iPhone for relatively inexpensive amount of money. But if you want to go buy something full price and unlock, you're always going to be stuck spending $1,000+.
That's the point, though. I mean, Look, I mean, we always talk about this as if people are going out and spending $1,000 or $1,300 or $1,500 on a phone. They're not. They're getting them on contracts. So the idea... Well, they are. I mean, come on. When was the last time you bought a phone outright? When was the last time you bought anything outright, Sean Priest?
Never. But the contracts, the period of the contract and the price of the contract is always increasing. That price is still being absorbed by us somewhere. And I think people are finding it harder and harder to justify that for a phone. So I think Apple really do need to reconsider their pricing, whether they will or not.
But that's my argument.
No idea.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly why an SE2 is exactly what they need to bring out right now, because that is the device which is available for those. I mean, I always think back to the iPhone 5C, which was a pretty terrible phone. But,
yes,
I mean, what it was nice about it was it came in different colours and it was kind of nice and cute. It'd be like almost having an XR little baby. A little baby to the XR. I don't know what that would even mean in terms of letters. XB for baby, I don't know. But, I just think they need to come up with something that is going to be more appropriate and a bit less expensive. But maybe you're right. Maybe they're stuck in this idea they can make so much money. But from what I hear, and Mark, you might know better than me, but I don't think the sales of iPhones are particularly good at the moment. So
No, and I think that you make a good point there, because if you look at when Google released the 3A, they clearly had a target market in there. They clearly wanted to give people an option to get in on the cheaper side of the spectrum without compromising too much of those high-end features. And it appears that it really did take a little bit of momentum away from Apple.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that in sales figures. We're never going to know for sure, if someone walked in and said, oh, you know what, I'm not going to pay that price tag because I want to pay this price tag. But I think it's definitely something that is not a coincidence.
Well, I'll be interested to see what happens. I think it would be great to see an iPhone SE 2, whether or not it comes this year. I think if it doesn't arrive this year, it ain't happening. I think I would go so far to say that, because I think this is the year where it needs to kind of show up. Otherwise, like I've said earlier, they're going to reduce the prices of older handsets. That's a good thing. But I'll tell you the big reason why I'm so keen on having an older phone or an older style phone is because I love the headphone jack. I love it.
Oh, wow. Well, that's gone. That's history.
No,
you can forget about the
no.
headphone jack across the board.
Even the S10 still has a headphone jack.
Listen, I think as long as they can get away fitting those headphone jacks on phones, any company is going to try and do it just to be different and stand out. So we'll see how that kind of turns out. Gentlemen, this leads us into a great, very cool segment that we have lined up for you in just a couple moments. We're going to take a quick break. This is Double Tap TV. I am Marc Aflalo. He is Stephen Scott. And we're joined by Sean Priest. And we're going to make Sean Priest be our guinea pig and try to get off that iOS ecosystem when we come back.
Love Double Tap TV? Listen to AMI Audio for Double Tap Canada every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for news and reviews on everything tech. This is Double Tap TV.
This is Double Tap TV. I am Marc Aflalo, as always, joined by Stephen Scott. And this week we are very happy to be joined by Sean Priest.
Yeah, well, we're very excited to have Sean here this week because he is doing something that I don't think I've ever heard a blind person do, and that's use a phone made by Google. I'm very confused. This apparently is a new phenomenon. It seems to be spreading across the world. Sean, you've tried out Google phones, and from what I understand, you're not hating it.
No, you see, and it's that bias that made me want to try Android. I mean, come on. We're so trapped in the iPhone is the all-powerful and accessible device.
It is.
Well, I'll be honest. Actually, it was just about the price for me. I'm finding it harder and harder to justify the price of those iPhones. So with the release of the Google 3A, the Pixel 3A, a really affordable price, I thought it's about time I took a look at Android. So, I was quite surprised.
Okay, well, I know you put together a little diary for us, so let's have a look.
Day one of my Android switchover, and I've got to say, so far I'm really nervous. I know that makes me sound strange, but I'm so comfortable with my old faithful iPhone 6s that moving away from it really does take me out of my comfort zone. Accessibility on iOS is great, as are the apps that I use every single day. I've started to find myself looking towards Android to see if it really is a viable, accessible option if you're visually impaired. Enter the Pixel 3 from Google. Now this is running a beta version of Android Q, but I've got to say so far, I'm really impressed. Now, out of the box accessibility was great. Simply holding two fingers on the center of the screen or pressing both volume up and volume down buttons for a few seconds turned on TalkBack, which is Android screen reader. This allowed me to go through the entire setup process with no sighted assistance and no issues, which is always so important because if I did come across a sea of unlabeled buttons or any issues during setup, I probably would have thrown in the towel and gone back to my old faithful. As it is, I am impressed. Day 2 with Android, and no, I haven't thrown in the towel yet. In fact, I'm still impressed. So I've been getting used to the Android environment and everything seems fine. The stock apps are all accessible and easy to use. In fact, I am using the Pixel 3's camera app to record this now. So the TalkBack basic gestures such as swiping left or right with one finger and double tapping to activate an item, touch to explore, they're all very familiar and very comfortable coming from a voiceover user's point of view, and there isn't a big learning curve there. However, the TalkBack specific gestures, the right angle gestures I think they're called, such as swiping to the right and then down to bring up notifications or swiping down and to the left to go back, I am finding a little tricky. This could be, of course, user error. This could be me getting used to performing the gestures, or maybe it's a talkback thing. Day 3 in a cold and rainy Manchester, but the Android experiment still goes on. And today was a bit of a crunch day for me because it was all about installing third-party apps. And a smartphone without apps is just a phone and really boring and useless. Well, apart from making calls, but you know what I mean. Android has had a bit of a bad reputation in the past when it comes to third-party app accessibility. So I did open up the Google Play Store and you know what? It was fine. Accessibility was great. I was able to search for apps and install apps with no problems whatsoever. Twitter, however, was totally inaccessible. I was unable to double tap the login button, and when I did get someone to do it for me, I was unable to enter my username and password because the keyboard was inaccessible and just donked at me, which isn't great and a real shame. But that is the first issue I've come across so far. All the other apps, as I said, worked fine. Day 4 with Android, and I'm starting to feel at home. It's nice and familiar. So much so, in fact, that I decided that today I would take a deep dive into the settings and have a little tinker, because everybody loves a good tinker. So I've got to say, there is one thing that I've found which I think is fantastic, and that's the ability to customize talkback gestures. So one thing I was missing was the ability to read the entire screen, or read from my current position onwards, something voiceover users will know as 2-finger swipe up or swipe down. However, I was able to add this action to a gesture by going to Talkback Settings, Customize Gestures. I now have it that the swipe to the right and down will read from my current position downwards, and swipe to the right and up will read the entire screen, which is fantastic. Also, going into the Android settings itself, the setup was nice and easy. I mean, the structure, I could find everything where I expected to be, and again, I had no issues at all. It's day 5 of the Android experiment and the final day of this diary, but is it the end of Android and me? Well, brace yourselves, because the answer is no. I'm loving it and I'm sticking with it, which from an Apple fanboy like me is such a surprise, such a shock. I can say that for the last 5 days I have not picked up my iPhone, and I haven't missed it either. Everything I needed to do or wanted to do, I've been able to do perfectly well using Android. Now, I don't want to get into whether iOS is better or Android is better, because that argument rages on and probably will for years. But what I wanted to know was that, is Android a viable, accessible option if you're visually impaired, and an alternative to the all-powerful iPhone? And I've got to say, it most definitely is. But there is a caveat to that. I am talking about stock Android and the Pixel 3. Now, the beauty of Android, and also its curse, is that manufacturers can take Android to use on their whatever devices, and they can change it to suit their needs. Now, the trouble with that is that your experience on, say, a Samsung S10 may be different to my experience on the Pixel 3 running stock Android. Now, for that reason, it does make it difficult to recommend all Android devices across the board, because sometimes accessibility can suffer when some manufacturers make changes. But what I can tell you is that stock Android, specifically stock Android, is accessible, it's usable, and more than that, I'm enjoying using it, and I'm going to stick with it.
You know what I love about this, guys? It's so nice to have someone else be the guinea pig so that we don't have to make all those mistakes.
Yeah, and also it means he does all the work and we don't have to. I like that.
I love that.
Yeah, that's good. But I think it sounds like you actually didn't hate the phone, and I am a little bit surprised by that, because I know a lot of people who turn to Google and have said it's okay, it's good, but it's maybe not quite as fully prepared or ready as Apple's iPhone is. Am I wrong in that?
I would say it depends what you mean by not quite as mature, let's say, as VoiceOver. I mean, it does work differently, and it is slightly uncomfortable making that switch no matter what. But I've got to say, I have not picked up my iPhone since, and I don't feel like I've missed anything, as I said. But it is the Google stock Android experience that I'm going from. And I think it is great. Accessibility was fantastic, particularly on third-party apps, which has always been a bit of a problem with Android in the past when I have tried it, but I've got to say the third-party app accessibility was great, system accessibility was great. There were things I actually preferred. The customization, fantastic, and something we're not used to when we think of iPhones. So from that point of view, it was a real, breath of fresh air.
I think, you know what, I like to poke fun at Google, and I genuinely am just poking fun. I think that Google have done a fantastic job with accessibility. They're a little bit behind, but then we're maybe looking at maybe a year of difference perhaps between the experience you would have on VoiceOver to what you would have on TalkBack now, which is a lot better than where it started about, 5 years apart. So I think they're closing the gap. I think the work has been done. I think it's really interesting to hear someone like you, Sean, who I know personally, and I know you're a huge Apple fanboy. So to get you to switch to an Android device and stay switched, I think that says a lot.
Well, exactly, and I still am an Apple fanboy.
Not anymore. I heard that the club card is being recalled.
Wow!
Sorry. I'm sorry. You're out of the magic circle, I'm afraid. The fruity circle.
Sean, thank you for taking the bullet for everybody. Let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back on Double Tap TV.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit AMI.ca/DoubleTap. Welcome back to Double Tap TV.
This is Double Tap TV. I am Marc Aflalo, as always joined by Stephen Scott, and this week we are humbly welcomed by Sean Priest. Now, guys, we want to be as interactive as possible on this show, which means we want to hear from our listeners and our viewers. So, Stephen, how can people get in touch with us right here?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Mark. Couple of ways. You can email feedback at AMI.ca, or you can find us on Twitter at Double Tap Canada.
So here is a video from one of our faithful listeners. Her name is Kyla. Let's take a listen.
Hey guys, my name's Kyla and I'm a grad student. I'm low vision, but my vision fluctuates. And so some days I can't see very much. And I was kind of wondering if there were any tools you guys knew about that might be able to be used in order to read documents.
Thanks, Kyla. Yeah, it's a difficult thing, isn't it, when you're losing your sight and you're worrying about a lot of different things. And I imagine there are many things in your mind, but, you're asking about reading documents. And that's an interesting one, Sean, because there are so many different ways now for people to read documents using your smartphone.
Yeah, I mean, just a few years ago even, the hardware that you would have needed was the size of a wardrobe. But now, thanks to smartphones and, how powerful they are, it's a fairly easy task. Now, there is one in particular that you've probably heard of called, I think it's called Kurzweil, and they are pretty big in the OCR technology realm, and that's OCR is optical character recognition, and that is what this technology does. It takes printed text and converts it into digital, so we can listen to it or have it spoken to us. And a big one that I use is called KNFB Reader. That's available on Android and the iOS platform, and personally I think that's great, but there is a price to that one.
Yeah, there is, Sean. How much is it?
Well, it changes. It does come on sale now and again, but you're probably talking around the $100 mark.
Mark, that's for an app, a single app.
Well, and aren't there services that Google's offering now that are free?
Yes, well, you can get Google Lens, which will do a lot of reading for you. It's kind of built, I guess, for more outdoor reading. So say you're outside and you want to know what street you're on, or you're perhaps in a foreign country and you don't know what a sign says, like, for example, don't walk out or you'll be hit by a bus. Look, I'm going to tell you about one that's even better than all of that. In fact, I can tell you two. One is called Voice Dream Scanner. It's a tenth of the price of what Sean paid for KNFB Reader. Okay. I mean, it's a fantastic app, around $10. No, honestly, it's brilliant. I've tried it out. What I like about it is it's a very simple app to use. And what it lets you do is very simply just put your letter, whatever that letter may be, in front of your phone camera. What I do with mine is, I put mine on the floor. I put the letter on the floor between my feet. And then I set up the app, and then I kind of hold the phone kind of roughly facing downwards towards that piece of paper. And then it takes a picture of it, it scans it, and then it reads it to you. And what's brilliant about it is it could be like a bank statement or a credit card statement, something you might not want other people to read. And it will actually read it to you aloud, but privately. And that's great. And the other one I'd mention is Seeing AI, which is kind of similar. It's got a lot of other functions to it. It's like a whole toolbox in itself, isn't it, Sean?
It is, yes. It's one of those multi-tools, so it can scan barcodes on products or tell you what colours things are, and that is really good.
One other one just to mention that I think might be quite interesting to say, although maybe not for reading personal documents like bank statements, is Be My Eyes. It's a volunteer-led service, so you are actually connecting to somebody, a human being somewhere in the world. It is a free app, but you've got to be careful what you show them. Like, don't try and get them to read your card number, because I'm not saying these volunteers would take that and run away with it, but you don't know, because you don't know who they are. So it's about being sensible. An apps like Voice Stream Scanner, Seeing AI, they do allow you that sense of security that you might not get from something like Be My Eyes. But it's a good app to have in the toolbox as well.
So, we'll post links to all those on our Twitter feed. And, of course, if you have any questions, it's feedback@AMI.ca. Let's move over to Twitter. There's a letter here from Danny who says, I love watching Netflix, but I find it difficult to turn on audio description. Is there any easy way to do this? So, do you think we can maybe give a demonstration on how to do this on a PC?
Yeah, so PC, how dare you? Apple Mac, I think, Mark. Because,
I meant PC like personal computer, not necessarily a Mac or a Windows machine, okay?
Oh, you're so Canadian. Right, look, let's get into this. So I've got a Mac here, the best computer in the world ever made, just saying. And I just want to show you how I would do this. Now, I'll be honest, finding audio description on any device can be rather difficult. Sean knows this only too well, because on the iPhone, for example, Sean, it's hard to get to, isn't it? It's not the easiest.
It is. Yeah, the problem is that the controls are on the screen for just a few seconds, and you need to swipe through. Excuse me. You need to swipe through and find the button you want, which is the audio and subtitles button. But you've got to be quick about it.
Well, it's kind of the same on the desktop as well. So here I am on the Mac, but actually this could be any computer. It's a browser like any other. So, I'll give that one to Mark. All right. Okay. PC. Fine.
Thank you.
Now, one thing I will say about using any browser with Netflix, and no matter what screen reader you're using, you will come up against challenges, because this is quite a dynamic website. So it's always moving around. Things are always happening. Videos are starting to play. That can be a bit of a nuisance, actually. It's not an easy thing to get by, but it's something you're going to have to be aware of. So if you're using a screen reader, you're going to have to listen very carefully. I've managed to mute those audio, those videos starting to play with their audio. So that should make it a little bit easier for us to find what we're looking for here. Okay, there's Bad Blood. I don't even know if that is a Netflix program, but I'm going to go into it. And I'm going to look for the play button. So let's watch it. Let's hit play. So I'm going to now just basically use my VO keys to move around the screen, use the right arrow, and you'll hear that I'm going through the different menus. And the options the option I'm looking for is audio and subtitles. So once I get to that, I VO space, which is like a left click equivalent, and that brings up all the language options for the program. So if I wanted to watch this program in other languages, I could do it here. If I wanted subtitles to be on, this is where I'd find it as well. But in that list, you'll find English audio description. So there we go. So I can now put English audio description on, and what will happen is the audio description track will start playing. And it really is as simple as that. And what's brilliant about that is, especially with Netflix, is that once you've done it once, you don't have to do it again. And that seems to be the case across most of the devices, Sean. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, that's right. And you don't have to do it per show either. So once you set it on whatever, on your iPhone or on your Apple TV, wherever you set it, once you turn audio description on, it's on for every show that has it on every device. So you only need to set it and forget it, really. It's great.
And that's pretty cool. So I mean, once you've done it, it's easy. And the great thing is you can, maybe if you find it easier to turn it on with a phone, great. But again, it will replicate across every single device.
Very cool. So the Twitter address is DoubleTapCanada. The email address feedback@AMI.ca. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here this week. I mean, it's so fun to have this conversation, this dialogue, and it's so fun to interact with our listeners out there. So on behalf of Stephen Scott and Sean Priest, I am Marc Aflalo. Thank you guys for being here on Double Tap TV.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit AMI.ca/DoubleTap.
Hosted by Marc Aflalo and Stephen Scott. Contributor Sean Priest. Editing Will Attar and Marc Aflalo. Integrated Described Video Specialist Ron Rickford. Coordinating Producer Jennifer Johnson. Director Production Karen Nye. Director Programming Brian Perdue. VP Programming and Production John Melville. President and CEO David Arrington. Copyright 2019. Accessible Media Inc.